Hello, hello. Welcome to the Art of the Graceful Revolution. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Bird. Whew. Where do I start? Where do I start today? Well, I'm really happy to be here. I've got this crazy hair going on. It's nice. So today is the day after the end of Senator Cory Booker doing a filibuster for more than 25 hours on the floor of the Senate. And I am both incredibly inspired and also wondering what's going to happen next. For those of you who don't understand a filibuster, the thing that is remarkable about Senator Booker's filibuster, a filibuster is where a senator will stand on the floor of the Senate. Congress people can also do this, and talk. They hold the floor and they talk for as long as possible without going to the bathroom, eating, or leaving their desk. They are allowed to drink milk and water, but I don't know about you. As a middle-aged woman, I don't think I'd be able to drink anything because I'd have to pee 10 times. So the thing that is remarkable about Senator Booker's filibuster is that he beat Senator Strom Thurmond's record of a 24-hour filibuster. Hi, Lisa. By more than an hour. And what makes that so remarkable is Strom Thurmond's filibuster was to prevent segregation so he didn't want segregation to be thrown out. He wanted to keep the country segregated. And so he filibustered for 24 hours and 19 minutes. And what's so remarkable about Senator Booker's filibuster is that he beat his record by almost an hour, I think. So a black man beating a white man's record in the Senate is pretty remarkable, especially given the fact that we still live in a super racist country. So this is very revolutionary. And it was done with such grace that I hope that all of you who are watching this, if you didn't watch Senator Booker's filibuster, I highly recommend that you look for the highlights. And also I highly recommend you listen to the last hour. Because a lot of what he talked about Representative John Lewis, who was a civil rights activist who fought for desegregation. But one of the things there's a couple things I really wanted to talk about today. And it stems from this idea. I was listening to a podcast by Kate Buller, and he was amazing, Lisa. So good. I was listening to Kate Buller is a theologian and an amazing human. And she was talking about, she asked this question, and I think this question is so relevant to the Art of the Graceful Revolution and the idea of engaging in small revolutionary acts. And I think if we were all able to answer this question, it would really change the way we are engaging in the world. And the question is this: what small hope is rising in you about the one small difference you can make? And I really love that question for a couple of reasons. We don't all have to stand up and filibuster on the floor of the Senate to make a difference. And the idea of small hope and small differences, especially right now, is really important because so many of us, like the collective energy of the nation, is about this idea of filtering through the noise of negativity. So many people are in fear right now. And if we can start to grab onto these small hopes and these ideas of the small differences that we can make in people's lives, all of a sudden we gather momentum, which is in and of itself very revolutionary, because us staying stuck and staying wrapped up in the negativity is, of course, what people want so that we can't move forward in our lives. and in the work that we do. And so I really love this question, partly because I've done a lot of speaking about fear, and I feel like the way we have anthropomorphized fear is such a deep myth that is just it's just asking us um to get out of it. And the reason I think fear is kind of a myth, the way we talk about it and contextualize it now, is that fear creates a fight or flight response in us. That when I say, well, I'm afraid to talk to my boss about fill in the blank. Immediately when we say that word fear, our brain goes, oh my God, we have something to be afraid of. Should I fight it? Should I run away? What should I do? And in our daily lives, there really is not a tangible fear that we have to fight or that we have to run away from. Now, there's an exception to this idea because we live in the year of our Lord 2025 and things are bananas. So, one of the things that Cory Booker said, he quoted Representative John Lewis, who said, fear is a necessary precondition to courage. And so this is where I'm making an exception to my own rule about fear being a myth. And it is this: if you are afraid, then you can move into courage. You can have the courage to say the truth of your lived experience. We all have a story. And if fear is the precursor to courage, then when we acknowledge what we are afraid of, we can move into being courageous about taking an action of it. And that's where that small hope and that small difference comes into play. Most of us are not hardwired to make big, gigantic, huge impacts in the world. We are all hardwired to make small impacts in our daily lives and to give ourselves the opportunity to speak to ourselves and others through a language of love changes the dynamic of terror and fear. So having compassion for ourselves for feeling the way we do, and then having compassion for others and recognizing in our shared humanity that others also are afraid, gives us an opening and an opportunity to think about courage. Because it takes courage to say the hard thing or do the hard thing, even though those things aren't actually hard, they're just complicated, right? When we think of things being hard, we think of rigid surfaces which aren't permeable and can't move. But when we think of things as being complicated or difficult or many layered, we are able to act in courage. So everything I've talked about for the last couple of minutes is all about changing our language about the way we interact with the world. So one of the things that I have been thinking about as I think about acts of graceful revolution, how can I put grace into actions that I'm taking, is all about changing the language that we use. It's not right or wrong, because right or wrong always sets us up for failure, and it also sets up for us to have an enemy. But if we aren't right or wrong, we are just having these experiences that are informed by everything we're listening to and experiencing. The actions that we take can be grounded in courageous words. So one of the things Cory Booker said yesterday was, don't be brought so low into hate. I do love to hate people. There's like something in me that is like, oh, I hate you. I hate your actions. I hate your behavior. And hate brings us down to a very seedy level. And I've been thinking a lot about what it would mean to take the word hate out of our language. Because what would happen is then we would have to we'd have to search for other words that have different meaning. The word hard, the words right or wrong, the word hate, those pull us down away from our heart center. They pull us into a space that is seedy and dark. And we are being invited to pursue the things that make us feel more alive right now. We're being invited to look at the reality of what is around us and see how we can impact our little corners of the world. There is something robust and remarkable happening right now where we are being given opportunities to be courageous. And sometimes it takes courage to say something as simple as, hey, partner, hey, person I live with all the time, I need help. And sometimes the courage is to pick up the phone and get the test result from the doctor, or to tell a family member that is not seeing you for who you are. The courage is to say, that's actually not who I am, and I need you to stop treating me like this. So I think there is the revolutionary act here is to think about how when we speak our truth, we are seen in the fullness of who we are. Kate Bowler says when we speak our truth, we let ourselves be known. And there is so much happening right now in our experiences that is really inviting us to be known and to be seen. And a lot of people, when they get into this fear space, want to run and hide. And that doesn't give us the opportunity to engage with courage. And so I really want us to think about the grace of engaging with courageous conversations, the grace in admitting that we are afraid, the grace in admitting that we have this small hope that will make a small difference. And there are little things that we can do to move into that courageous space. One is to feel discomfort and do it anyway. One is to acknowledge that we're not motivated to make a change or do something different, and just let that be. Like, just sit in it and settle in it. One thing that we can do to move into a courageous space is to take the risk to be fully seen in the entirety of who we are. And I'm wondering how you have moved into spaces of courage. How have you allowed yourself to push past fear to become a more courageous individual? I can think of so many places where I have allowed my anger to actually push me into that courageous space. A lot of them have to do with my advocacy work that I used to do. One time I can remember in particular was that I was a lobbyist. I was working for Planned Parenthood. And one of we had introduced comprehensive sex ed legislation in Utah, which we knew was never going to pass, but we were trying to raise the level of debate and conversation. And one of my board members said that I was so ineffective, because of course it didn't pass. I was so ineffective at my job that If I would have been the lobbyist for the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks would be a skeleton on the back of the bus. I was like, thanks, dude. That's not nice. And I could have wallowed in that, and I could have thought, yeah, you know what? You're totally right. I'm a big loser and I can't do my job and I'm super ineffective. But what I did was I went and got a tattoo. I actually went and got Eleanor Roosevelt's signature tattooed on my arm. Here, evidence. And I thought to myself, what would Eleanor do? What would she do if she was told she did not have the capacity to do her work? Eleanor Roosevelt really inspires me, and so that's why hence the Eleanor Roosevelt tattoo. And I thought to myself, what would it take to do my job even better and more courageously? Sort of to stick it to the board member, but also to remind myself the infinite power of my capacity to do the work that I was doing in the world at the time. And that's the small hope. That's the small differences. It really strikes me right now that so much of what is happening is we're getting sucked down into the negativity and the fear of the unknown, because we're just drinking from a fire hose in the United States of America. And all of our friends outside of the country, if you have friends outside of the country, they're all going, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing anything? And there's so many of us who are just like, I'm just trying to feed my kids, pay my bills. And here are the little things that I'm doing. So I want to really encourage you, as you're watching this, maybe one of the things you do is make a list of the 10 courageous things you've done this week. And they can be very minimal things. So they can be as little as I got myself out of bed. Sometimes that's a big thing. Maybe they are as courageous as asking for help, or asking someone for money, or asking someone to just spend time with you. Sometimes when we've been disconnected from our friends, for example, it's hard for us to say, hey, I know I've been out of pocket for a little while and I'd really like to spend time with you. So, and sometimes it's calling your elected officials and saying, this is how this is impacting my life and it's crap. And, sometimes we decide to run for office. Sometimes we decide to have a protest. There's so many examples in our lives where people are finding courage. And one of the ways we break down this fear, which is a precondition to courage, is to stop living in either or binary thinking. So when we get out of this all or nothing context and start living in the both and, evolutionarily and revolutionarily, we end up connecting to ourselves and to other people in a way where we realize I can be both love and anger. I can be both motivated and frozen. I can be both happy and worried. And one of the great things about living in the both and is it creates these spaces of courage where all of a sudden we realize that we can do things we never thought we had the capacity to do. You hear so often of people in car wrecks, for example, who physically lift cars off of people, or, like watching earthquake recovery or fire recovery, or, all of these instances where when people's adrenaline is up, they can do extraordinarily difficult things with their bodies. And it's because they aren't thinking. They're just acting. They're just being courageous and thinking, I have to help this person who is trapped here. We can do that in our everyday lives. We don't have to wait for a crisis to occur to do the lifting of the car. We are extraordinary animals with this incredible capacity to love and to hate, to be super giddy, happy, and ridiculous, and feel deep sorrow. And the question I think we are being invited to ask ourselves is not, how can I be happier? I think the question we're being invited to ask ourselves is, how can I do what I thought was impossible? How can I engage with these big ideas that come into my head while I'm dreaming, while I'm sleeping? Yesterday, Senator Booker was talking about this is a moral moment. And the invitation that was presented to us was to not meet it with silence. And it made me think about even my own writing and my own platform on Substack, and even here in the Passionistas project. I was just thinking about, what have I been silent about because I just don't want to get into the fray? Or what have I been silent about because I don't want to argue with other people online? And I think there's this calling to not be silent about how we're feeling about things. I am a Native American, bisexual, feminist, lay preacher woman who also reads tarot cards. I have every reason to hold myself up and be afraid of what's happening and what's coming. And I just refuse to do that. I've actually been reaching out more to people and wanting to be more visible and more available in my community. And that's extraordinary in this moment when people are thinking about retreat. We cannot retreat anymore. We cannot allow that fear to keep us from moving into courage. And Brene Brown has a video on vulnerability, and in that video, she talks about the definition of courage is to love with your whole heart. So I really want all of you to think about, what would be the courageous thing? If we're thinking about what small hope is rising in you, that about one small difference you can make in your life, what is the courage piece to that? What would give you the impetus to make that small difference? I think for every single one of us, that engaging in that act of rebellion and that act of spiritual and physical grace compels us forward into telling our friends and our neighbors and our family and the people around us, hey, this is how this is impacting my life, and this is how I think it's impacting other people's lives. And I'm wondering if there's something we can collectively do to take care of that. Watching Senator Booker yesterday, I was crying. I was just sobbing. And I was listening to him talk, and my 14-year-old son came home from school. And he came upstairs to say he was home, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm watching a senator filibuster to talk about what's happening in the country." And he got so excited because he's doing mock Congress in school. And he said, "Mom, I just learned about the filibuster today. Can I watch this with you?" And I thought, dang, there is the universe conspiring right there. My kid didn't know what a filibuster was, didn't have an understanding of it. Most people don't know what a filibuster is. Just learned about it in school that day and got to watch it in real time, what it really looks like to have a senator stand for more than 24 hours with no food or drink and without going to the bathroom in the same exact spot on the Senate floor. Unbelievable. And I thought, what divinity? in this 14-year-old kid learning about this act of Congress and then engaging in it in real time. And there's been a lot of moments, particularly in the last week, where Spirit has given me a really lovely 2x4 to the face to remind me to pay attention to the signs that magic and divinity is all around us all the time. And so I just want to leave you with this concept and this notion that engaging in graceful revolution is not about the gigantic, huge act of miraculous change. It is often the connection with other people over coffee to tell them what you need and how you can connect with them in some way. Yesterday, I was at tea with a new person that I met through our Interfaith Council here. And I told her about my big, big, big dream, which is to build the Mermaid's Garden as a retreat space in an aquaculture farm here in Oregon. And I've been working on this dream since 2020. I dreamed the dream in 2017, but I've been working on it really diligently since 2020. And she said, well, how much land do you need? And I said, 50 acres. And she said, I know someone with 167 acres. I bet we could get them to give you 50. And I thought to myself, I almost didn't go to that tea date because I don't know her. And I thought to myself, I almost gave up on this big ass dream. I've tried to give up on it a lot. And I thought to myself, what would have happened if I would have never gotten involved with the Interfaith Council to meet this woman, to be able to tell her about the farm so she could tell me I might know somebody. And I don't know where that's going to go. But here's what I do know from all of these years of advocacy and lobbying and protesting and writing and connecting. If we don't have the courage to try, we're never going to find out what's going to happen next. So there it is. Fear is the necessary precondition to courage. Thank you, Representative John Lewis. Thank you to all of you for listening. Find that one small hope to make the one small difference this week. I love you, and I'll talk to you later. Wait, before I go, hold on. Before I go, if you have any questions or you want to talk about everything I just said, or you want to know more, just message me. That would be, I would really love that. I love you too, Amy and Nancy. You're welcome, Lisa. Talk to you soon. Bye.